I've seen a few posts about this and I wanted to comment on it because I have a personal experience with it. It's not something that's happening in the future, it's something that's happening now. I rented a car in Europe, and as the woman handed me the car keys, she said, this is a brand new car. And she was like super excited about it. She was like, it's 2026. And I was like, awesome. No one's had a chance to like fart or smoke in it. This will be great. And I'd driven it for a day or two, and I was getting on a highway. It was a 6-lane highway. And all of a sudden the gas stopped working, and I'm pressing on the gas. I can't get the car to go. So the car is dinging. It's making all this noise, and I can't figure out what's going on. And I look at the dashboard, and in English, it says, sit up straight. We can't find your eyes.
It starts with a simple question and ends in objective reality. Through our journey from there to here, we find one another and ourselves. And as the next 24 hours breaks free from our last, we gaze onward in reflection of the day.
Come to your own conclusions. Stay vigilant.
Welcome to the Daily Wrap-Up.
But I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that I'm going to have some kind of an issue with this show. I hope not. Let me know in the chat if you guys can hear this. I don't know if you've been seeing what's been going on with me, and maybe it's only on my computer, maybe it's StreamYard, I'm not sure. I have to have 2 different browsers up with 2 different windows so I can even add videos, because one won't let me and one won't let the audio work, and nobody seems to be able to figure this out. I'm not muted, so this is looks like it's not working. Let me know if you guys can hear me. Yeah, so there's definitely something wrong. Let me know for the first couple minutes here if this is even consistently coming across, because we might have to call the show today if this isn't working. Okay, you guys are telling me it's working okay. All right, so right now everything is freezing. I can't hear the videos. I'm going to try to work my way through this. Worst case scenario, I might just pull the video back and jump on the other one, but I'm hoping the audio will work. I was hoping not to even have to get into any of this, but it looks like you guys are hearing me pretty well. So we're going to get into it to start. But it's an interesting show for this to happen to, around specifically the conversation of flock cameras and surveillance and where all this goes. Now, we talked about it yesterday, and please, again, for those that are regular viewers, let me know the moment you see something or hear something wrong so I can try to address it. Otherwise, I'm just going to get into the show here. It is choppy for you guys. Let me know. I'll try to work with this best I can. Yesterday, we talked about ICE and really just the kind of police state that is growing in this country, the obvious reality of it. And we were going to go more into depth yesterday in the kind of overlap with the technology, and just decided to leave it there yesterday. So today we wanted to make sure we come back and talk about specifically the Flock Axon Vigilant Solutions license plate reader conversation, because this is an important one. And I'm hoping this doesn't have to be too long today, because the important part of this is that, like we talked about really early in this, we should be concerned about whether or not there is an issue here, about whether or not let me just do this real quick. So I just clicked that button. It's probably going to take 10 seconds for this to even come up. That's part of this problem, as I'm waiting for this window to come up that I've already pressed the button for. It's just, I've like a 30-second delay for stuff like this to happen as I've been waiting. There we go. At least for me, it just came up. In fact, let me know if that was up the whole time I was talking. That would actually help me understand what's happening. But I'm going to take my video back, and hopefully that might help something. I don't think it will, because frankly, I think this is something beyond just normal stuff, my opinion. In any case, we're going to start with this. Ignore the thing on the screen for a minute. What I want to get into in particular was as I was discussing yesterday with the idea of ICE and the kind of, police state and the overlap of the technology. We talked about the idea of the potential psychological operation, the head fake around Axon flock cameras, and whether or not that was something we should be concerned about. And as we discussed early, of course we should. no matter how it ends up being, like, even if it's something that isn't even really happening, remember, this is based on something we actually care about, even if we were tricked into focusing on it. Unconstitutional surveillance and plenty of other things they're doing. But so my point would be, we should wonder whether or not they wanted us to do that. Like, for hypothetical point that we'll get into, maybe the Trump administration wanted Axon to be the successful one, so they wanted us to focus on Flock. That's a fair point. I don't think that's what's happening. I'll go into that. But we should ask those questions, right? Now, as we keep this, as over the last week, let's say, this has really developed into kind of just the buzz. Like, there's some of us that have been really covering this and getting in depth. And usually what happens when these things catch fire is you get the usual kind of, jackals around the outside of all this that end up just making these little, half of them go viral for half information or partisan views. And, and none of it really gives you, it's just it's a jumping on the bandwagon kind of thing. And that's what makes us feel even more skeptical. So what I want to cover today is the fact that, like I said to begin, regardless, this is, I'll just say it right now, as I said yesterday. I think this is an organic thing. Of course, every organic thing that is a danger to the establishment will be attempted to be co-opted, which is what I think is happening here. But I really do believe this. One, because again, we actually care about unconstitutional surveillance. That's everywhere. So I think what's happening is that effort to get us to ignore it. Now, maybe Axon was the play, but I want to go into what's actually the reality of those numbers right now. I briefly pointed at the end of the show yesterday, because it's not the way people are making it seem. I was one of the earlier ones to cover the idea that Axon was sort of the bait and switch, where we had 53 different counties that had all switched over to Axon, some of them quietly. 80-something counties, last I checked, were removing Flock, and it's more than that sense. But that's a small fraction, and I'm going to go into that today. And I want us to think about what that means. And really, what my gut is telling me, whether Axon, Flock, Vigilant Solutions, and plenty of others, there's multiple other companies, all on the smaller, like lower end of the, of the spectrum, but that I feel this is about trying to divide us, to trick us, to fool us into somehow either allowing or ignoring the problem. That's what I think the real psyop here is they're trying to get us to fight each other and ignore things, even if it's real, even if they got us to look at it for some kind of second layer manipulation. So we end up ignoring, the real point, as I keep highlighting, missing the forest for the trees. So instead of focusing on the objective crime in front of us, we dive further into the hypothetical, which we should ask. Lahaina and the bigger conspiracy theories, the idea of direct energy weapons, all these different things that are important and interesting. But guess what happened? They never got held accountable for the real and obvious land grabs and crimes, or East Palestine, or any number of stories where the partisan game completely bastardized the story and broke it down into multiple, 17 different theories, which again, I always support the idea of thinking and considering, but that buried the crimes that were committed. Like I make, even on East Palestine, you realize that company, Norfolk Southern, is, again, how many times I've told, they're bigger, stronger, more successful. Nothing happened to them. They gained from that situation outside of the problems that it caused and the headaches. So this is my point. If we would have focused, these people should have been in prison. Instead, partisanship allowed us to focus on the other thing. They shout you down for thinking you're falling for the small story. Trust your gut. You know what's right and wrong. You understand what's going on. That's why you're here, whether this show or any other that's actually talking about the objective, nonpartisan, bigger picture. So that's what I want to get into today. Now, I want to talk about a few things to start, as you're seeing here, a part of this sort of like propaganda side of things. I want to talk about that. To get into this, I want to overlap quickly the part about ICE that we discussed and a couple of extra points I want to add to kind of reset that table in your mind. Again, just quick update in the chat. Let me know everything's going okay, because I'm super worried about this freaking out today, just because I feel like this has been acting super crazy, but I'm not seeing any issues. So after the ICE part, we're going to get into predominantly just the idea of Flock and Axon and all the rest and where I think that goes, and some deeper points that you're really not going to see on the Twitter encapsulation of this bigger story, which again, as I recently said, I think it's important to consider. Actually, let me do this too as I'm talking. I shouldn't have even said that, but let me, there we go. Sorry, now I lost my train of thought. I wanted to shrink the window so it doesn't look so weird, because I'm weird like that, neurotic. There we go. There we go. But important to think about that there is a new category. See, I can't even get it right because the thing is taking so long to adjust. Anyway, let it go, Ryan. So on Twitter, on social media, there's a new category of kind of, of creator content, the people that, like I said yesterday, I think will kind of encapsulate larger stories for kind of viral Twitter sensation. And that there's a valid role to play there. right? And some people tend to do it in dishonest ways where they kind of grab other people's content. That's not the point I'm making, but just to recognize that there are people who do a really good job about grabbing something and know the template to make things go viral. And some of them do honest work, by the way, not just all the gross mainstream alternative media. But what I'm highlighting is that recognize that most of those things are and the good ones will make sure you know that and give you a link to something deeper, are surface level. The talking points going around. Make sure, if you care enough, that you dive into these things in depth and go through it, because we're going to get into the deeper parts of this story. Now, back to the starting point is the two-party illusion stuff that I think is relevant to all of this, and a couple quick other points that I want to include. Now, first, Ian Smith here simply says, gosh, I hate those foreign ops, because Jack Posobiec posted, the amount of people who got paid to attack Trump's peace deal with Iran is astounding. We are only just now scratching the surface of these foreign ops. Remember, that came from the idea, largely Israel-stemmed propaganda about Iranian foreign ops, while everyone's going, but Israel, or any number of other things, making it about something they could use, right? So in this case, okay, double check him. He's highlighting the case of these people that are out there holding those binders, most transparent administration in history for the Epstein file, every one of them, DC Drano, Liz Cheney, Libs of TikTok, all Cat Turd, all of them. What's his name? They're in there holding it up, and then they drop the story the moment they were told to. They are fakes. They are frauds. They are manipulators. That's not even questionable, guys. And everyone seems to see that, but the people in the circle that pretend they're not. And this is what I'm highlighting. And I want to start again with the point that you probably are frustrated by, but I do think it's important. Who knows? Maybe this will be the last time. But I do think that it's important to see this as it goes forward. Again, the idea that this right here, what you're looking at, represents the fake MAGA. That's what that is, whether they know that or not. They're the people that don't actually care about what was promised. Now, I want to make a quick point about something that really kind of even elucidated this further for me in my engagement in talking about this online. Actually, this isn't even relevant. I'm kind of in the other point right now, but I'll play it just because it's funny. Somebody was yelling pedophile protector at Trump while he was in the crowd. It relates to the Epstein point. That's why I was going to include it. But the point was just, again, I guess it's relevant to the MAGA stuff, because what's interesting to me is that you have a crowd of people who are there that really do support Trump. But realize, even they understand what's going on, guys. Even they know the Epstein files, and most of them kind of wanted that, but have just decided for any number of reasons to support him. There is a category of that. But what's crazy is that as this guy yells this, many of them just kind of look around. You don't see someone go, hey, screw that guy, get him out of here. And Trump calls him a communist. A communist, because that's so relevant, isn't it? Because they must be a Democrat. No, because tons of Republicans care. But this is the lazy reality. And so the people that choose to ignore how dumb that is and support him anyway is what I would call fake MAGA. People that care about what he originally promised are people that actually believe in that original idea. Now, that doesn't mean they're MAGA. Maybe you think the entire thing was just a movement the government started, and so therefore these people are no longer anything but people that see Trump for what he is. What I'm trying to highlight, though, is that whatever you think the real movement was still exists in my mind. It's all these people that cared about what he promised and never got it, and in large and seemingly in unison have turned on him. That's just not being allowed to be seen, like the flock point I'm going to make today. Before we get further into that, here's just this clip. I hope this plays.
But now all of that is changing because I placed historic tariffs on foreign producers and manufacturers, including a 25% tariff on foreign automobiles, something that no other president had the courage to ever do. He's a communist. He's a communist.
All right. Well, let me know if you heard that. God, this is so incredibly frustrating. All I heard was the last few seconds of it. So let me know if you heard the whole video, please, in the chat. Because if you didn't, then I don't even know how I'm going to get through the rest of the content I have that I want to share with you. I'll talk through it, but I've got tons of important video content that I want you to see. You did? All right. Well, let's keep going. I guess I won't be able to comment in as much as I would like. Some of you will love that since I won't stop the video, but frustrating. Just have to stress, guys, as much as I always comment on it, but this deserves like a deep understanding of how long this has been going on to me personally, but this platform, just the thousands, and it's not unique. There's tons of people that have been dealing with this long before I was doing this. I remember them. God, my computer stopped working. Who knows? And you should question whether this is being done to me or just somehow I'm screwing something up back here. You should ask that. But I'm just telling you guys, it's just unparalleled. I don't know anybody else, anybody, even the people, anybody, anywhere, even Alex Jones that deals with this constant, this many platforms. Do your best to compare it. People love to call them no censored, and that's not some kind of competition. I would love to not have to deal with this stuff, but I just think it's crazy how consistent this is. Anyway, I digress. I got it off my chest. Now, point is, clearly, it's an interesting dynamic happening at this rally. And it's clear that he didn't like it as he tries to talk over it really loudly. And, it's clear that he was uncomfortable. And then, of course, communist, because, well, I guess that'll work. And, did it sound like everybody even supported that? I don't know. That's how you can decide. My gut tells me that that's not what's happening. So on that point, Adam comes out and says, this is the account Adam says, did anyone notice that MAGA on the July 24th, MAGA stopped caring about the Epstein files as soon as they found out Trump was in them? Now, is that what you all think? Do you think that that's not what I saw? In fact, I saw tons of people in the conservative side of the conversation who were like, and still to this very moment, were screaming about that. Many of them, that was the line for them. Much more Iran for some of them. But the point was, they said, wait a minute, we want that, right? And so in your mind right then, if they decided to ignore what he promised and support him anyway, I would call those people not real anything. They're blind followers. You have people that actually believe in the movement. You can decide what to call what. And this is what it comes down to, sort of a perception difference, right? Because I'm going to make this point next. And this really did kind of open my mind to a difference on this. But so what I said again is I said, not MAGA, the ones always pretending to be MAGA. And I say this as one who doesn't support either side or government in general. It seems to me the majority of conservatives, I'm telling you, I know you guys are starting to see this, have come to see Trump for what he is. At least, maybe you don't think it's the majority, but we all see this growing number. His numbers diminishing, people, it's pretty damn obvious. In my opinion, the system actually wants us to continue seeing it this way. And that's why I keep bringing this up, because I really do think there's a game here. I think the effort is to get us to think that every Trump supporter, rather just every Republican is one way and every Democrat is one way, when I think the point of why that's so aggressive is because neither side captures that majority. They're losing influence in everything, foreign policy, influence on us. This is falling apart, and we all sense that. And so for us to fall into, especially those of us that actually see this, people in the media field that have been calling this, they're the ones in my experience right now that are falling for this more than anybody, at least as I see it. I guess the way I would frame it is I care about this because it's like I see people that I really care about, that I feel that aren't calling this for what it is. And I want people to see that because I don't feel they have negative intentions. I just don't think they're seeing it. And again, I could certainly be wrong. But this is what I thought was interesting here. Oh, next one, actually. Another one. This Kim Iverson said, Republicans had a moment of being cool, and I had hope, but that has gone to SHIT real quick, which is a weird statement, I guess, because Republicans had a moment of being cool. They're all just people, guys, and they're not just one nebulous idea. Neither are Democrats. So that plays into the two-party illusion aggressively, what I don't agree with. And I've told her that before. Sam Tripoli says, please tell me you understand that both parties are garbage and voting for the Democrats won't change anything. Now, I'll also point out that I've seen her do plenty of posts like this where her intention is, and I've done the same, to make people think a certain thing, not that she actually believes exactly what she's saying. I can't say. You can decide for yourself. I get the sense that she really is kind of saying, well, they look like they were going good, now they're going down, which can't be taken in most people's minds for anything other than support of the other side. Not always the way you should look at that. But he asked the same question, like, recognize they're both wrong, bad, right? Which I like Sam for that reason. We aren't voting our way out of this, he says. Everything you hate about the country you live in was either brought by Republicans or Democrats. They are two wings of the same corrupt, decaying bird. He's right. And I said, I also think it's worth noting, at least in my opinion, the Republicans she's pointing out are the ones playing team sport politics, right? The ones that were like, we like freedom and democracy. And then when whatever Trump says, they didn't believe in it in the first place. So whatever you thought was cool were people that were pretending. But there were people in the conservative movement that believed those things, and they still do. So why would we point to the ones who lie instead of all the ones that are currently fleeing from Trump that still believe what she thought was cool? You see, it's like a choice to see it a certain way. And I said as well, and they don't really care if they get what they were promised. I think the majority of conservatives are not in the category of those who blindly support, at least in this moment, right? And this is what I thought was interesting. Godfrey says, when I tell you that MAGA is stone dead, and what I believe since his comment down here is that he means the Trump support. That's how I take this. I wasn't sure when he first posted it. He said, it's not because that is what I believe or because of my feelings. That's what you get. You hate Trump, right? And he says it's because of the numbers. And I agree with him in that regard, in regard to the support for Trump. The math reveals yet again that the spell of MAGA has been shattered. Now, if you mean the spell, which means they support Trump in that group, then I agree with that. And he says 33% of MAGA base has peeled off, according to the pollster. Now, I think it's more than that. And I think he said something similar that he says down here, actually. But I said, what if the ones that peeled off, what appears to be the majority, I argue, are the genuine MAGA movement? Just thought experiment. Do it help me, reach people in the thought, at least consider it, right? The ones who actually wanted to make America great again, right? Not the ones who pretended to and went with whatever Trump said, but were played by him, right? But now call it out. Why would the hangers on be the real movement? Okay, I'll leave it there, guys. I'll read his comment, but I know some of these things can be redundant because it's something we go through repeatedly, and I always aim it to people who are new to this, not the ones that are always here. Which, that's just the way I do this. And some people get irritated by the redundancy sometimes. But I'd like to believe we're all here for that moment, for the reaching people, right? And he says, yes, that is exactly what is happening. He agrees with that. And he says, I think that 33% number is lower. So we agree on he said it's probably more 60%. The only remaining MAGA at this point are people under full mind control of some kind and American Zionist Jews. And I believe he put it in quotes because he's talking about the people supporting Trump. He says, real MAGA in capitals left a while ago. So we agree. And he says, most of us leaving when Trump asked, so he sees himself in that category, is why is everybody still talking about Epstein, right? That was the statement he said that threw him off the Trump train. And so I just think that's crazy. So it's even this person who believed in the lies, but then when he saw that he was being lied to, had the integrity enough to go, okay, I'm not supporting him anymore. What do you mean? What about Epstein? Clearly we care about that, right? But yet even he sees himself as part of a dead movement, which I just find fascinating, right? Because why wouldn't you go, but we still believe those things. We are still MAGA. But I get it because that represents Trump in people's minds. So I hope that elucidates that more for people, because that is what I'm trying to highlight, guys. All this really means is most Americans in this group or that group are on your side, whoever's out there watching. And you may not believe that. I believe that. I think the evidence backs it up. I think we're in an important moment where people are starting to recognize, as I've said my entire career, you've got far more in common with the person on the other side of the line than you do have ever had with anybody on any side of your government. And so here is, just another kind of point. Evan Kilgore says, MAGA sucks now. And it's the same point, right? Depending on how you aim, you could make that an accurate statement, or I would argue, you see what I'm saying? And so it really depends on what you think MAGA was. Was it Trump's name for what his group was? Or was it a group of people that wanted those ideas? I think it's obvious it's the latter, right? It's just about the way it's framed. And I think the first framing helps the system. Now, a couple of opening points. This has been going around. Kanoa the Great. Fauci's diary says he's privately put COVID's fatality rate. Bottom line is Fauci's diary stuff has been going around. The guy's a war criminal. I hope he goes to jail. I bet he does not. The point is, all the stuff you can find is really, if you followed this, if you followed our platform or anybody doing good work during COVID, you know about almost everything in the supposed diary breakout. The point is that it's past, right? First of all, he got a pardon from before, even though I don't see how that could even hold up for, but then on top of that, Trump as well let it go. Statute of limitations, any number of things, guys, on top of the fact that Trump is completely complicit in everything they might go after him for. Why would he open that door? So here, this, I believe, is about going, look, and stop paying attention to. So I would argue the Kanoa the Great types are still in support of Trump. You can ask yourself whether you think Luke is. He's calling him out recently and acting like the confused person going, how, dude, what's going on right now? Oh, did he lie to us? Yes, he lied. Back when we were trying to tell you that before. He says the administration does have a way to put him in jail, and the people here are demanding justice. We desperately need to prevent this happening all over again. Oh, so you do have hope that Trump will do the right thing. Amazing how that's still possible. Or at least that's what you want people to think. They do have a way to put him in jail. Well, they could do whatever they want, but technically, legally speaking, they've already chosen to avoid and omit and ignore and rather just put behind them any actual way to do that. Desperately prevent this from happening again? Really? It's happening right now. In fact, you just posted under Trump's other post about, or rather it was somebody else's about Trump saying he just funded Pfizer. So why would we be calling on them to go after him if they're doing the same thing? Well, you see, this is how the game of the mainstream alternative media works to get you think, you know what I mean, and you know where this goes. Stop falling for this. Toby Rogers, by the way, on the note of the vaccine side, had a really great post. This is Joe Rogan podcast news, whatever account posting it, Toby Rogers has sat in front of Congress and laid out the reality of the vaccine problem, not just COVID vaccines. What I want you to really realize here is that he's talking about the government, and he mentioned the positive note about RFK, but realize everything he's talking about right here, this administration is still doing, including now, as I pointed out recently, reinitiating for new recruits the flu vaccine mandate, which is included in what he's discussing here. We're making new COVID shots for children, for adults, spending more money, as Jeffrey Tucker showed me, and I saw online and I shared. So where's the real problem here, guys? I mean, why would we aim? My point is this stuff ends up being used to sort of act like this is still somehow Trump's agenda, like Maha and RFK Jr. and Toby Rogers. Well, they don't support any of this right now. And I've proven that. But I wanted to play this. He talks about, epistemic capture, which is interesting. I hadn't heard that before. Somebody's saying no sound. Let me know if that's the case. And it's talking about how these industries capture like the knowledge base, which is exactly where we are. It's a great clip. He's very well spoken in this. Hope you can hear it.
That we are in the midst of one of the greatest crimes in human history. We have a product being injected into children 70 plus times over the course of their development that's never been tested against a proper saline placebo. Over that course of that time period, chronic illness in this country has gone from 10% of children having one or more chronic conditions to now more than 50% of children having one or more chronic conditions. Secretary Kennedy, in the hearing that was last week, said that the latest data from the CDC says that 76% of Americans now have one or more chronic conditions. And I believe that lots of these chronic conditions stem from iatrogenic injury. We have 3 million children with autism. Back in 1970, the rate was so low that it was essentially zero. I'm outraged by that, and I think every person in this room should be outraged by that. I don't know how to say it anymore clearly that we need to change course in this country. And I'm terribly disappointed by the medical profession. In the social sciences, there's this term called epistemic capture, which is when the entire knowledge production process becomes captured by one industry. And that's what's happened with science and medicine. And so I think we need to change course. And I think the people who have covered up the autism epidemic and the epidemics of iatrogenic injury should be held to account for their actions.
I think that's over. I can't tell. Okay. Great clip. Sorry if it cuts short. I think it's over. Yeah. It's an important conversation, right? But the entire thing, like not just the idea, which I find to be the most important, the idea, because it goes well beyond vaccines, the idea that these industries or like the industries pointing to has captured the production of knowledge, if you can call it that, like the industry through, and that's, this is like going back to the Flexner report and the Rockefellers and the medical industry and how they captured the school. I mean, this is exactly what he's talking about, guys. Look, we've done entire shows on that. Look up the Flexner report. Look up the, I'm blanking on the term. Anyway, it's very clear this is something that has been done for the profit, for control, not for safety, not for you. So as he says in the post, Senator Blumenthal was like, how dare you call Nuremberg 2 trials? And I was like, well, actually, the bottom line is we need to have a massive change here. And this is the current administration. I think we know that, right? It's rather the U.S. government. Because if you believe they were going to do something different, well, you were wrong. Pentagon restores mandatory flu shots for all recruits amid boot camp outbreak. So if they can do it for, because, that's a thing, well, then why wouldn't that justify, there's a new outbreak for COVID or whatever they say next? It's the same exact thing. All this is doing is showing you that they have their own justifications. There's also this conversation, which I found a little interesting on the resurgence of the flu mandate for new recruits. RFK Jr. bets $500 million on universal vaccines in shift from COVID-19 funding, which, by the way, don't forget, still continued. They still have the commemorative shot. They still have the self-amplifying shots for 2 different groups and plenty more that I haven't even gone into yet. May 1st, 2025. The point is, when they shifted away, they claimed from COVID, but actually didn't and lied about that. They shifted $500 million because it was the most public COVID contract. They wanted you to think they did. Remember, they made a whole thing about it and then ultimately funded COVID shots anyway. They shifted it into universal flu vaccine directions, which has been Fauci's wet dream. He's had so many conversations about that over the years. So maybe that was the plan. This happened before they suddenly shifted back. Who knows? Just include, the point is, recognize that they are on the same agenda. And don't forget, we just talked about the new kind of phage bacteria system discussion. And that's really kind of an adaptation of the gain of function direction. It's the same conversation, using viruses to infect bacteria to cause certain change. It's terrifying. Look it up. And that's my opinion. I mean, I'm sure somebody out there thinks I'm wrong, but I'll stand by my logic of the evidence and peer-reviewed science that we read. And I think it shows you experimentation. And my point is before, the peer-reviewed science, there's plenty of studies that have told us that exact direction can be just as dangerous. So it's all just another head fake, guys. So I'll include the conversations about them using self-amplifying shots with both Comirnaty. The new shot is out there, but there's Amplitude Therapeutics. And I forget the other name of the other one, but they're all included here, both of which are continuing with self-amplifying mRNA shots under this administration. And they just funded, again, as you saw, 2 more contracts for adult and child COVID-19 vaccines. And just as if you want to see just a perfect example of like a perfect metaphor for what this administration is in particular, this person posts, or technically they deleted it, so I shouldn't, it isn't even worth bringing it up. It's just hilarious to me that the White House or the State Department is deleting their own post because they're embarrassing themselves, because it said, winning, right? Super cool, whatever that's supposed to mean. And then they literally posted, it's not an option. It's like, I don't even understand what they probably meant. Like, it's not an option to not win or whatever their mindset was. And then they deleted the post because somebody said winning is not an option. It's like, it's almost like they tried to embarrass themselves, or they're like, subconsciously posting what's actually the truth. I don't know. That's just pretty sad. But it's exactly what I agree. I think that's where they are. So let's get into the point about specifically Axon, flock, bait, and switch, including the bigger picture of what's all happening. But briefly, to reset the table with the ICE conversation, for those that didn't see this show, and man, I recommend you do. Like, for those that follow this, people at Free Thought Project, for example, that literally part of their main focus is police corrupt. They've been covering this my entire life. But what this shows you is a dramatic increase in general, but in particular with ICE and the use, and rather the lack of training, almost like the deliberate use of illegal tactics, and how that has just mushroomed the entire police field. And I mean, so a thing that was already happening has gone rampant, which, I mean, I can't stop seeing examples of this. And some of them you'll see, as I pointed out in the last show, or you could point out in previous years. So it's not new, but it is happening and it is exploding. And it shows you they don't care about your right. They don't care about what's supposed to guide their actions. And you think that comes from a unilateral decision, guys? It's clearly coming from the top. And that's why it's spinning out of control. And then we'll just have only a few examples. Then we're going to go right into the point of where the Axon flock camera situation is right now. Now, this was the show. This is a post from Blue Lives Matter again. Now, I found this interesting because even they keep like trying to, caveat, what we do is love cops and support cops, but, and they keep doing this. And I even looked further back and I didn't see some consistent, basically a count that's supposed to, it's Blue Lives Matter. So the count is pro-police. Now I look back, I didn't go super deep, but I was scrolling back and I didn't see that they were doing this way back when. So what it shows me is even this pro-police account, as it says, we hate doing this, but as the largest police news outlet in the world, we have a duty to fight for good cops, but also call out the bad ones. So all it shows me is that there is such an increase in this that even the police accounts are like, yeah, if they're honest anyway, we have to point to that. And so this is even sort of a benign example compared to what we showed yesterday. This one and the next one, which is even smaller, is about the violation of your rights, and kind of in conjunction with the ignorance of your rights, which is so incredible. But the idea that you have these police officers that now create illegal situations, like as I showed you 3 examples of yesterday, police go up to a car. Oh yeah, I just want to make sure you were okay. I heard you yell something. So, and no, you're not being detained, like no reason. They even state that they have no legal justification. Then they go, oh, but, step out of the car. I want to ask you a couple questions. And well, no, am I detained? No. Okay, then no. And they go, well, if you don't step out, it's obstruction. And this is a common thing right now. And guess what, guys? It is not. Now, if the government no longer cares about your rights, they can do whatever they want. But that's not what we're being told. And so the reality is that they're telling you this as if that is the law and the right. It's not. They need legal justification, probable cause. We've gone through all of this. So the question is, do they care, or are they just ignorant of the law? Or is it both? And so in this case, not only is this woman just going after a guy because clearly he irritates her, and that's what seems to guide most of this, but even the supervisor who is there joins her rather. This is an abuse of power and ignorance of rights, or a situation that's grown too large to stop because this has been allowed by the highest power. And so they're thinking to themselves, well, we already know we can get away with this. You decide which category it's in.
What's this in your back pocket? I just saw you walking it.
It's a navigational aids. What's the problem? You a tyrant?
Yeah, I am actually. What's your name and date of birth?
I don't have to give that unless
Yes,
I'm
sir.
good.
I was investigating.
You have reasonable.
Do you want me to put you in handcuffs right now? Yes, sir, I do.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly. You don't
have you
to...
ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be a dick to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
No, sir, I'm doing my job.
Am I detained?
Yeah, you are. What's your name and date of birth?
It does not matter.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do you have a crime?
Would you like me
Call
to
your
put you in?
supervisor,
He's right
please.
here.
All right.
You don't.
What'd you stop you for? For a walking stick.
So,
And it could look like a weapon. She asked you to present it, okay? Now she's asking me for ID. Okay. I don't need the ID unless there's reasonable articulated suspicion that I have committed a crime or about to do a crime.
Sir, and her suspicion was that you were armed, okay? And she's asking for your ID.
Well, now she has verified that I am not armed. Okay. So there is no problem.
Do you have your ID or not?
I do have my ID, but you don't need it.
Okay. Okay.
All right, you deserve it.
77 Whiskey Mike detained. I don't know where his wallet is.
Where's your wallet at, sir? I don't have my wallet on me.
Okay, where's your ID?
Where's your ID at? Pocket. Which pocket? You are not allowed to search me.
It's in this pocket.
There you go.
Thank you.
I want your names and badge numbers.
1257 on Nick, 65 Florida 27.
Yeah, 4427.
Preferably
Hotel
your cards.
322 457 61 2540.
Yeah, 26, 23,
Just for time and, I don't know, making sure I can't really see where it's at. The first part's really the important part. And as you can see in the post, this was October 31st, 2022. So I find it very interesting that this is something even pro-cop accounts are choosing to highlight, because I think we're in a point where this is obvious, right? But what's important to highlight there, guys, as I said before, this is not something that is new. It has been growing and it's getting worse. The introduction of the way ICE is today and what they've been allowed to do is only spiraling this out. Please watch yesterday's show. The point in this is to highlight the example there, the idea of, where are you going? What's happening? And you don't have, there's no justification to stop you. The thinking you have something, what's the crime here? Is it a crime to have a gun? Well, we don't know whether you have a license. Okay, well, you don't have a justification. The idea that they worm their way through that to argue that you somehow broke the law about something they don't even know for sure is happening is an excuse. They are even taught to do this. But the point is, it comes down to a reality where she abuses her power and the police officer with her goes along with it. because you don't just get to create that based on your, so you have a gun? No. Okay, well then you weren't even right about what you were claiming. So what's the actual cause here? You don't then just go give me your ID because I thought something. That's not legal. It's a violation of his rights. And I shouldn't have to explain this, but either they don't know that because they were taught otherwise, or they just don't care. I don't know why that's not like shockingly important to people with where we are in the world right now. Now, here's another small example. This one also was, it's not immediately new, but it was one from this, like Venezuela, Trump, Venezuela, this administration. Now, what I find this so interesting is because what actually ended up happening. Here's the full clip I included. I'm going to play the clip that they posted here. And all you don't get in this shorter clip is that I'll tell you what they actually say at the end. But she's in the middle of an interview with the media, and they arrest her.
Of us, the people, to stand against the Trump regime, the Trump administration, that are committing crimes both here in the U.S. and against people in Venezuela.
Now, in the background of this interview, you could see that police car. And now right here, we're showing you video we have. Immediately after the interview finished, Plickta was arrested by 2 Grand Rapids police officers. You can see it in the video, and an officer tells Plickta that she is being arrested.
Okay, damn it. I mean, did you guys even hear the first part? I can't tell because I only get clips of it. Did you hear what she was saying before she was arrested? Let me know in the chat so I know where we're at here. The bottom line is that she was standing there with Keith on, right? Palestine garb, is talking about Trump and his Venezuela actions, and they walk up and arrest her. Now they charge her for blocking traffic and ignoring an order from a police officer, which, by the way, the idea that you're ignoring an order from a police officer is not something they can charge you with unless there's a justifiable cause. That you don't just get to go, you do this and I extract my authority. That's not how that works unless there's something you're doing that is illegal or you're already in the process of being detained and then you ignore them. The game they play about their authority is disgusting today. So what I think is most important about this is that, of course, they charge her with, the claim was, well, you were protesting in the street earlier with a group of people, and now you're on video saying I was part of that protest, so we're going to jump out and arrest you for not stopping the protest that we said was blocking traffic, which the video you can go ahead and watch is irrelevant. Even if you think it does, it's not the point, because what I think is important is that they later dismissed the case. So what you're seeing is a choice to abuse the situation to harass a person who you disagree with, who you think is part of the Democrat terrorist group or supports Palestine versus Israel. That's what this is. And this is one example of a ton of these. Now, you may think Democrats bad, so I don't care. But this side of this, whether Democrat or Republican or aware of how both are ridiculous, because what I think is important is that movement and still existing support for Palestine was not uniquely partisan. But that's how it got framed to get people to ignore it. So you had people like this that were protesting against Israel, and then their rights get violated. They get beat up. They get sprayed with bear spray, whatever, and then it gets ignored because the idea is, well, they're a bunch of communist domestic terrorists. I just don't know why we're that easy to fool, or some of us anyway, because it's mostly people lying because they know they're lying, but some people do fall for this. So keeping that in mind, one last point, because we are talking about what's coming to us as Americans. It matters in this context. It's important because as an American, what we're discussing is the complete fault, the authoritarian rise of this power structure in the United States. And so let's quickly revisit the point of where this might go. And let's not forget that a U.S. citizen has already been deported. I covered this, not the children, which also happened, but the guy from Texas. And we covered this back when it happened. And I'm willing to bet you there's more than we even know. The ones that don't have family, the ones that don't have lawyers, the ones that got whisked away maybe in the beginning. Now, what I'm going to highlight here is where this goes to. Because realize with what they're doing and trying to frame Democrats or just Americans who disagree with the government as some kind of a terrorist, or the ones that fight data centers or cut down flock cameras are somehow domestic terrorists, he's already building the case to argue that you can be deported. He said it many times. I'll play the clip. So where we're at is a situation where you're now creating an easier system, a more opaque system, one where there's not as many checks for the process on the way out, one where they've got multiple countries, they jump them between, so you don't know where they ended up. They've built this. ICE deported man who says he's a U.S. citizen. Now, this is such a crazy story, even from the Texas Tribune. You know why? Because he has a birth certificate. He has a Social Security card. The lawyer proved it to the court. It says Brian Jose Morales Garcia has a birth certificate showing, and please look into this. Look at the last show. It's not just because they claim it. He introduced this evidence to the court, showing that he was born in Denver. ICE agents accused him of lying and says he entered illegally, saying he's a Mexican national. Now, whether or not he is, the point is he has citizenship in this country. And all they said was, we disagree. Now, if you go to the extent of this case and you go through all the evidence, what it comes down to is evidence versus what the government claims. I'm not making that up. Please dive into this. And what's so insane about that is everyone seems to keep the DHS claim without evidence somehow is more important than the literal documentation that proves he's a U.S. citizen. And this is a group, by the way, that's been caught lying more than any single group that I think I've ever seen in one topic. Whatever it is, in a year's span, like just insane amounts of consistent dishonesty. So if you don't know this, make sure you educate yourself on the reality that this was one. Now, I don't know if they meant to do this or they thought he was a Mexican national. The point is they literally deported a U.S. citizen, know that now, and never tried to correct that. It's disgusting. Now, I'll also include the different shows we have about this topic. Trump deportations revealed to be full of innocent people, legal immigrants with no criminal record, people who actually had the right to be here legally and didn't have a criminal record, who got scooped up in that first plane to El Salvador, many of which never came back because they didn't have the right representation. This was 2025. Americans speaking out about Israel's genocide could be next. In principle, it's the same thing. Ozturk, Khalil, now they ultimately won, but they tried, guys. And Trump has made it clear that Americans could be next. They had an amendment to stop deportation of U.S. citizens that got voted down. 2025 in May. Also, the DHS has been caught, and please watch this if you don't know that. That's all on record, caught lying about detaining and deporting U.S. citizens over and over and over. McLaughlin, Noam, Bondi, just insane amounts of very clear dishonesty. Actually, I hope this doesn't cause this to freak out, but I want to add that clip real quick, if I can. Let's see. You guys have all seen it, but I do think it's important for those that haven't, because many people, almost don't believe these things because of the media and the algorithms until they actually see them for themselves. Hold on. Where'd it go? There it is.
It's bad now, the authoritarianism that is coming, Gerald. I am really, really fearful for the President of the United States of America to suggest, as he did on Air Force One on Sunday night, that American citizens could be deported, for his press secretary to say, we're looking into a way to see if this is legal. We don't know if it's legal or not. A, is terrifying. B, betrays such a profound ignorance of first principles to which he is sworn. He is sworn to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and to enforce federal law.
You mentioned that you're open to deporting individuals that aren't foreign aliens but are criminals to El Salvador. Does that include potentially U.S. citizens, fully naturalized Americans?
If they're criminals and if they hit people with baseball bats over their head that happen to be 90 years old, and if they rape 87-year-old women in Coney Island, Brooklyn, yeah, that includes them. What do you think? There's special category of person? They're as bad as anybody that comes in. We have bad ones too.
Profoundly un-American, utterly unconstitutional, and I'm sorry to say, is coming.
Seems clear to me. Now, in one clip, he talks about naturalized, which is still a U.S. citizen. Another, he talks about being born here. So it's undeniable, guys, as Napolitano is clearly worried about. Now, here's a couple different articles. ProPublica, we covered this as well. They found more than 170 U.S. citizens that have been held illegally by immigration agents, even though they lie about that. Kicked, dragged, detained. The U.S. veteran we just talked about, Reitz. We also have children who were U.S. citizens that were deported, and even though the mothers were wanted them to stay, and they argued the families wanted them to leave, like in this whole game they played. Just disgusting. Now, Aaron Melnick points out the Trump administration just published a new regulation allowing asylum officers at the U.S. government to deny hundreds of thousands of applications without an interview. sending applicants directly to deportation proceedings. So it means that people will never get a chance to argue their case. Right. So what I'm showing, and this is in everything you can see right now, and even a point I might make, I forget if I included it today. No, I think I pulled it off. And when we get into Iran in the next conversation, a point about the nuclear conversation with Netanyahu flying to see Trump right now. People wondering whether they're trying to convince him to kind of rationalize tactical nukes. At the same time, you got Donald Trump lessening the radiation concern. Now, I don't want to go into it without having the stuff in front of me, but the point is trying to lessen the allowance of radiation in a general sense. Seems kind of a weird coincidence, doesn't it? Maybe there's something to that. My point is, in any number of categories, you're seeing this degradation. Like the safety things, or like the idea of bureaucracy, really talking about removing, what's the word they were using? Basically talking about things that we want for us, but they apply to corporations instead. The idea, like if you're talking about regulations and whatever else, another word I'm missing, the point is all of it allows is corporations to dump stuff in your water, not something that would be aimed at you. And it's like they're abusing this practice, or Maha in general, claiming they want to make you healthy and then doing all the opposite. So I think this opens the door in all of these ways, that not specifically that, but the direction they're taking in regard to opening the door to making it easier to do what they want, to get around the law. Now, this is another point that's very relevant that overlaps with where we're about to get into. You might have seen this. Bombino, I think accidentally, and even tries to hide it and makes it worse, admits that Israel is training police and IDF. Or you mean police and ICE. And you know this already. I've proven it. I'll show you yet again. But for those that still don't want to hear it, this is real. And that means that they train them with their tactics, which we are seeing in everyday life.
The nation over there has a lot of influence on the Israeli government, has a lot of influence on our politicians over here, I think, is what he was kind of getting at.
I see. Yeah. And I'm not a politician, so I don't know. And, it's the only dealings I ever had with the Israelis is when I was a young agent with Border Patrol Tactical Unit. They sent me to a VIP security school, and it was ran by the Israelis. And let me tell you
so
what.
IDF actually does work with Border Patrol and ICE, because I've always heard that.
Well, it was that school was for all law enforcement. It was they put it on. It was Israeli. They contracted with Israeli instructors. They had a lot of experience, and they were really good. I'll hands off some of the best training I've ever had. They did not F around. So that was back 2000, 2001. But I understand what people are saying. Perhaps there is an outsized influence by Israel. I've never really been up against that, but then again, I'm not a politician. Israel wouldn't influence me, the Mossad or whatever, however they do that. I'd like to know what is the influence? How do they do that?
So that's important, guys. Just like this casual point about that. And again, it's frustrating that people don't take the time to learn this because it's easily provable. No, I think I have him in the wrong spot real quick. This point. ICE and the Israeli military are two sides of the same coin. We must resist both. That's truth out. There's an example of Israeli soldiers actually serving in ICE, disputed, but it is somebody out the allegation. The point is you can literally prove this, guys. ICE also signs contracts with Paragon Solutions, an Israeli spy, what do they call it? Spyware company, which, by the way, Trump also, where was it? Trump gives green light. No, that's the anyway. Trump administration is the one opening the door to Paragon Solutions, even though it's a fraudulent company that's been accused of crimes and been felt guilty of crimes, journalists, very clearly. So what I want to highlight is the technology now that we're seeing at ICE's fingertips very quickly. Leaked document shows the spread of surveillance and investigations capabilities that ICE officials have access to agency-wide, from location data, harvesting from smartphones, to facial recognition. Like, that means yours, guys, not just selectively. Like, these are things they're scooping up using Israeli cars that are meant to act like stingrays or any number of other things. And it's not just some hyperbole, guys. That's literally the reality. And it says, do tools that let the agency stay anonymous online, the things they're stealing from you. And it goes into plenty of them. Accurant, a LexisNexis tool for locating people that contain all sorts of personal data like addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers. Chameleon, a tool which provides anonymized means to conduct online investigations. Now, noticeably leave out all of the ones that are really most problem, the ones that are obviously connected to the bigger point, whether it's U.S. intelligence, whether it's Israeli intelligence, either way. Invasive, unconstitutional surveillance under the justification of fighting illegal immigrants that they're even being called out by from the conservative side for not doing what they were supposed to. Oh, I'm glad I had that highlighted. Now, this is important as we get into the surveillance of the cameras and what they're doing to us. You might have seen this. I briefly pointed to a lot of this yesterday on the way out. U.S. accuses American of allegedly wiping his phone using a duress password. Now, again, this is sort of the same point of the police unconstitutional invasion of your life. This just happened at the border. Now, there's many important points to this that apply to what they're doing with Flock and everything else, acting like there's caveats for your rights. Unalienable does not mean except when, okay? They don't get to do that, not even with national security. They will, doesn't mean they're allowed to. The U.S. Justice Department is prosecuting an American citizen for allegedly providing U.S. border authorities with a passcode that wiped the contents of his phone, according to an indictment in media reports. This is thought to be the first known case in the United States where federal prosecutors have charged them with a crime for the alleged destruction of data using a duress password built in the phone software. You mean data they never even saw? What's the crime here, ladies and gentlemen, that you hid information they had yet to look at? So the point would be that they think there was a crime. They never proved that. You were able to hide your information, which is your information. They weren't allowed to do it in the first place, which is the truth, even though they argue otherwise. And they're going to charge you with a crime for deleting you. Guys, this is probably the best example of where we actually are right now. And on top of that, the importance of why you should go in this direction. There's any number of things you can do. And I believe there's even things you can add to normal ones. But again, the point is to get away from de-Google direction, to get away from the current stuff. And the point is that there's a passcode in this app where you can, if you enter that passcode, it wipes the phone clean. And so he ultimately gave them that code as his, and they did it, and they wiped the phone. And so they're charging him with a crime for that. Atlanta resident Samuel Tunick is fighting the charges, rightly so. Tunick's attorney said that it was all unlawful for U.S. Customs and Border Protection to seize his phone as he arrived back in the United States, right? He's an American. And it shouldn't matter either way. Everybody has constitutional rights, despite the stupidity of some people in this country. Last year, and that any evidence, he writes, including the alleged wiping of his phone, should have been thrown out. Tunick's case also raises ongoing questions about what constitutional rights can be invoked at the border. Guess what, guys? All of them, which the U.S. government has long asserted, you ready for this, is not U.S. soil until a person is authorized to enter. Okay, wait a minute. You're telling me that we have to abide by your law anywhere we go in the world, that we have our rights will apply if in the context that you allow for anywhere in the world? Right? As you pushed on us many times, you had to pay taxes over there. That's not right. The point is they apply these things except when they don't want to, right? Either they're unalienable or they're not, especially as an American. Are you telling me somehow I magically don't have my rights when I step over that imaginary line? Really? Now, then that might be even more alarming when you realize that they've created that 100-mile no constitution zone, easy to look up. ACLU has been calling it out for years, that goes around the border. 100 miles. That means the entire state of Maine exists in a limbo where apparently your rights don't exist. All that shows you is to them, they don't exist at all. So what they're highlighting is that, well, you're not in the country yet, so we can do whatever we want. So by that right, you could do literally anything. Does anybody actually agree with that? So all they're trying to do is create this black hole where they get to evade your rights. That doesn't apply to anybody. Nobody should have their rights abused, human rights or otherwise, because they claim they have a safety job. It's the same thing they're doing with Flock. The government's realize you could argue that there's a necessity for safety, right? And they could turn people away if they want. That is their prerogative. But the idea that they will say, come on in, but then, now we have to strip search you, anal search you, take your phone, strip down your data. That's not how that works, guys. The government's indictment, which contains a typo, of course, literally wrote untied states code. It's supposed to be United States Code. Think about what a perfect example that is of who we're dealing with. Just this typo in this thing. They are the sophomoric second grade. They are the junior high team, guys. And it says accuses Tunick of allegedly providing a passcode to border agents that caused a phone to delete digital contents prior to the device being seized. Now, what if you were to say, you know what? I mixed up my codes. Good luck proof frivolous nature of what they're doing. because they don't even know what was in there in the first place. They don't even know if there was actually crimes. And you know what? Whether there was or not, it doesn't change the reality of this. He was repeatedly denied access to an attorney and wasn't even informed of his legal rights. Okay, wait a minute now. Are you saying this now? He's still over the borderline? Well, clearly not, guys. Clearly he's been brought in to their facility. But you see, that's my point, because to them, that still exists in this black hole limbo where your rights don't exist, even though you're on U.S. soil, within a U.S. institution, inside of a U.S. government building. But nope, your rights don't exist here. Welcome to the future. Well, wait until they absorb everything else with that because of safety and justification. Wasn't even given access to an attorney. You see, that's how they look at this. Your rights don't exist when we decide. Attorneys accuse the government of demanding access to his phone under the pretext of searching for child exploitation imagery. You see, they know that's what some of the blind followers want to hear. So they use that excuse to go in to do whatever they want. And they don't even care about that, seeing as how they don't care about the Epstein files, are clearly letting pedophiles go back to Israel, and the whole thing. But it says, but without providing evidence to justify the suspicion, which means they have no probable cause. The motion said that the border agents claimed they did not need a warrant to search his phone because he had not yet crossed the border. Okay. If you believe that's the case, well, then you live in an authoritarian dictatorship that decides you have rights when you're in a certain location. Good luck with that. Time to wake up, Americans. Guys, this is real, and it's right in our face. Now, you guys know that. You watch this show, you've known that for a long time. Now, let's play James Lee's clip on this, which I think is important to see, about the concern about the bait and switch, which I agree we should be considering. And then we'll go on from there about what I think is important to look at the numbers. He also just talked to Derek Brose again, by the way, just to check out an interview he did.
I think Trump and the Trump administration are the ones pushing these viral videos of people destroying flock cameras. Because I'm not gonna lie, all this looks super badass.
But before we start celebrating, I think we have to ask a much bigger question. Why is all of this anti-flock coverage suddenly exploding right now? Is this movement actually organic, or could it have been hijacked by more nefarious dark forces behind the scenes? Take Denver, Colorado. When Denver decided to part ways with Flock after a massive public outcry, they didn't turn off the surveillance state. Instead, what they did was turn around and hand millions of dollars in new contracts to defense tech giant Axon Enterprise, the multi-billion-dollar monopoly behind tasers, police body cams, and highly integrated AI crime centers. And if we follow the money, things get even more interesting. Axon has spent years aggressively expanding its lab, and Trump have personally invested millions of dollars into Axon, betting big on the continued future build-out of privatized law enforcement infrastructure. So you have to wonder, is all of this viral backlash against Flock simply clearing the way for an even bigger, more nefarious, more well-connected defense tech monopoly to take over America's mass surveillance ambitions? I'm just asking the question.
And I think it's important. We should be asking that, right? But I do think it's important to understand some of the nuance, which he's gone in following videos has gone into as well. And this is about the idea of, really, it's always important to ask those questions. And as he would argue as well, it's also important not to just allow that to become an assumption and guide your future direction, right? And so what I'm seeing is, as well as this concern about whether or not this was sort of a setup. But again, even if it was, don't let that, because some people are now going like, we shouldn't be jumping at this. They're trying to trap you. And it's like, well, you can make your own individual decisions about how you act on it. But to say we shouldn't be doing anything, that means just allow unconstitutional surveillance, because otherwise we'd be doing what they want from us. Like it's a trap. It's a trap in and of itself. But it's also could be exactly what he's highlighting here, that they know we're going to be up in arms about it. And so they create a problem, reaction, solution situation, right? And that's how this tends to go. Now, and again, everything you heard in there from stock and everything else you heard in our show on the 20th. Now, this is important to me, right? So what this shows you is the numbers. So right now, you're getting a lot. And so after our kind of coverage like that, James putting his coverage out, you got a lot of the kind of Twitter reverberation like I talked about, where you got all these new people making clips like that, of just breaking it down and making their little piece about it, and ultimately selling the idea aggressively that it's all Axon. It was always the plan. It's like, whoa. right? So you can see the difference between asking the question and making the concern clear and wondering whether versus them going, this is the thing because Trump paid it and we know it's happening. That's what you get from the mainstream alternative. Flock safety right now, 83% of the entire field in this country, 83%. So the question is obviously, even if flock is being, resisted and suddenly Axon will be the focal point, we have a long way to go before that actually becomes, no longer the majority of the ones we should be fighting. And either way, we should still be fighting flock, or rather just always be fighting unconstitutional surveillance or any form of automatic license plate reader or any number of other things. Let's not only focus on this one thing, right? That in itself could be the point. That while we're going license plate readers, like thousands of other things are coming out. This it's just about making sure we stay objective and keep our eyes open. 5% of the total. So 83% is flock. 5% is what's called Motorola Solutions, or rather Vigilant Solutions, which is the actual name of the company that makes it's under Motorola Solutions, and then Vigilant Solutions, the name of the actual product. So 5%. What you'll notice, you don't even see Axon in here. You know why? Because it exists within this 5% where 83 others exist. And I think it's something like 2 or 3% total, or maybe even less than that. But it's up in the air because there's a lot of, contracts and conversation that's not necessarily exactly in place yet. But what I want to highlight is, you know what? I take it back actually, because I believe it was one. It's less than, because the 2% was Genetech, which is another one that nobody's even talking about. But under that is Axon. That exists within this 5% in total of 83 others. So I believe Axon is going to be an increasing one. We've just saw 53 different counties at least begin that process. Right? Now, remember, as he also pointed out, or actually first, this is the one about Motorola. It's within this article, and you can look into the deep parts of it. He invested, Trump personally, which, by the way, I don't know why is not a conflict of interest. By the way, it is. Invested into Motorola, and within that was Motorola Solutions, which is Vigilant Solutions. So he does have stock investment in Vigilant Solutions. But he also, and this one was showing you the connection to ICE as well, which you should know is being ubiquitously used. The records show that 9,000 ICE agents have access to vast automated license plate reader database. And this one specifically was Vigilant Solutions. Now, this was $6 million contract, the ACLU highlighted back in 2019. So this is an earlier version of that, clearly. So Trump invested in it after the fact, but so clearly this was something they were already doing. Now, with the introduction of AI, these things have been turned into a whole new animal, right? And so question is, maybe that's the original point, and the rest of this is to distract us. No, we should just care about all of them, right? That's the point. Care about the idea of the principle, not just the focal point within it. Realize that the actual act of all of this should stop. And also, here's the article about Axon. So, yeah, Trump also bought stock. Is this kind of report, which I agree is important. And it's even weird, and almost the way he frames this makes me suspicious about why it's being stated like this. Saying Axon is safe and effective. To me, that's almost a little bit too much, right? And what's funny is, as Shadow of Ezra reporting, Axon's already acquired Carbine. Well, it already acquired. I mean, this was from 2020. This was 2025 when they did that. And I just think it's funny is that you get, I don't even seen anybody else really talking about that. I know there are others. I just haven't seen it. Talking about the Axon connection to the Israeli spyware, and then it becomes sort of like a passing point for some of the people that get that glean from everything. Interesting, though, isn't it? BlackRock and Vanguard, the largest shareholders of Axon. Yeah, which I do think is a problem, but half of everything, and also Rumble that none of you guys seem to care about. So it's funny, the selective point. Nonetheless, this clip is important because what you're getting is Knoxville police saying they've replaced Flock with Axon and saying that it's better because of X, Y, and Z, right? But as I'm seeing, even in Tennessee, you're getting a larger push about these in general. So it makes you wonder, what's the point of this clip? What were they trying to accomplish? Why would they come out and tell you we're doing something different? To me, that raises my suspicion more than anything else.
People's minds about these.
I can speak for the Knoxville Police Department, and I can speak for our commitment as an agency to use this technology the right way. Our commitment to building, again, strong policies that ensure that the technology is used the way it was intended to be used, and that we are committed absolutely to being transparent with how we're using that technology. Just talking about LPRs is, again, circling back to this, is it is one of the most impactful investigative tools that have come into policing in decades. And so I want people just to really hope that people will take the time to understand how their police department is using LPRs, the policies that we have in place, and how we deal with these situations, whether it has to do with LPRs or anything else, when there might be anything that's outside of policy. And so that's what I would say when you're looking at technology, the RTIC. We're an open book. We've got nothing to hide. And we want the community to understand what technology we're using and how we're using it.
See, that one seemed to be easier for me to watch for some reason. I wonder what the difference is. In any case, it's not, this is the same idea. Like, maybe he's genuine, that just a gut, and doesn't mean it's true. He seems like a guy who believes what he's saying, right? So it doesn't make a difference, though. It doesn't matter how it helps. And this is where we have to get to the principle of it all, right? I don't care what you argue it will do. In most cases, that, rarely comes to fruition, all the promises, right? But regardless is ultimately the rights that you have. It doesn't matter, though, the safety. Oh, the crimes will stop. Oh, the blah, blah, blah. Well, does it violate my rights or not? Aren't you supposed to be the one that's protecting that? These people have lost the direction. They don't know what their job is anymore. Or in fact, they just believe that, or maybe we don't know what their job is anymore. Or never did. Orwell Day, flock cameras removed from Syracuse City property are being replaced by Axon. Here's another example. So this is happening. And I believe it's going to be happening more and more, but let's keep an eye on the numbers. And again, to me, it honestly doesn't even matter at this point. It's about stopping all of it. That's where I'm seeing most of the people that I think are honest in this, that have been calling out flock cameras before it was a big thing that was happening, have all now shifted to going, look, we just want to stop the cameras in general, because it's become this worry that it's a flock thing, and I get it. I understand. I actually appreciate the fact that the community is so skeptical right now. We need more of that, but don't let it stop you from doing what you actually believe in, regardless of what the rest of people around you think.
License plate reader cameras, they're all now gone. But News Channel 9's Victoria Kellogg says while one system is out, another is apparently taking its place.
While these cameras, all 13 of them, have only been gone for a few days, the effort to remove them started months ago. 5th District Councilor Jimmy Monto says that push has paid off.
We're happy that those 13 are gone. I would be happier if Flock had no cameras at all in the city or the county or anywhere around here. But for now, I'm happy that they're off city property.
And the change goes beyond this intersection. City Hall now says that all Flock cameras in the city of Syracuse are now gone, following months of debate over privacy and data sharing.
A simple Google search kind of tells you what the problems are with Flock, or where we are seeing problems with their actions, especially around, new Americans and immigrants and the tracking of humans.
The city didn't walk away from cameras. It changed who will provide them, approving the switch to Axon, another license plate recognition system that Syracuse police says is important for investigating homicides and other crimes.
We are going to watch very carefully to make sure that people's rights, people that are just walking around the city of Syracuse, driving around the city, going to a grocery store, that they know what's happening when their face is scanned, when their license plate is scanned.
Monto says once the Axon cameras are deployed, the real test for him is just the beginning.
We want to make sure we're using.
Yeah. Whatever. The point is the fact that, we want to make sure it's your face being scanned the proper way. How in the world is that where that goes? Are they standing out there going, we don't like the company Flock? Are they saying we don't like the Flock cameras because of what they're doing? So in a way, you could argue the Psyop was to get that focus on the company versus the actual idea. Maybe that was the whole point, or all of it together. But the idea that they're acting like we hear you, we care, and we can't let this happen, unconstitutional, but these ones are better because we'll make sure they're doing it the right. Wait. If they were problematic to begin with, why are the second ones different? You see, it's just they're playing you. Or rather, maybe they think they are, because I don't think it's working. Oh, and this, I included before. This is important to realize that Axon in particular is, basically, as I highlighted before, even I think it's the show before a couple, or I don't know, maybe 3-4 shows ago, the idea of the surveillance connection of through Flock and all the rest of it. Leonardo point, the site of the record by an actual obvious son was the one leaning into the taser armed drones, which arguably didn't happen. Now, here's a police officer in Wisconsin who's being caught secretly installing Flock cameras. Now, again, the point shouldn't be about Flock. In some cases, I bet you they're using the word Flock when that might even be the actual thing. It's just license plate reader cameras. But I think it is Flock in this case, and getting caught doing so despite what people want. So it's clear this is going forward regardless. So why I think I'm highlighting this so aggressively today is because I think what they're doing right now is to get us scattered so they can rush this through. Like every time. And then we turn around and go, but wait, we don't want it. Well, too late now. It's national security. Like that's what every time happens, guys. People are seeing it.
Is under fire after installing Flock cameras without informing the mayor or city council. The city of Chetek installed 2 Flock cameras in late May. In a city council meeting about the issue last week, Chetek Police Chief Ron Ambrositis had a outburst in response to public comments criticizing the use of Flock cameras. He has since apologized for his actions at the meeting. Mayor Jeff Martin said he stands with the police chief on his use of the cameras.
Chief, he did nothing illegal or wrong. As the head of his department, he has the right, if he thinks, hey, this tool will help, he didn't have to come to me or the council and ask permission. It's part of his operating budget. So the funds for these things came out of his operating budget. He had the money, I assume, because, again, he didn't ask for extra.
It's good.
We reached out to the Chetek Police Chief.
Right. Yeah. So, he's got the right to do something that's unquestionably unconstitutional, right? Because he paid for it. Who are these people? This is your government, ladies and gentlemen. People who don't even know how to tie their shoes, but are literally telling you how you're going to live your life. Think about that. The police chief has no right to do okay. So you're telling me the police chief can install cameras looking into your windows? No. How is that any different? It's unconstitutional surveillance. They just pretend like it's, their argument is, but this will be to keep you safe. Who cares? I don't. And even if you do, it doesn't change the fact that there shall not be infringed, or rather, the idea is specifically about something that they're not allowed to just create a justification for. We used to remember this, right? But because we're being so mired in these fake partisan online AI debates, people miss it. But I argue right now that's changing. Thomas Massey comes out, and again, I'm glad this is the kind of thing that when I see, I go, okay, good. Like, this is what I wanted from somebody, to show that you aren't just playing into some kind of a game, right? I still, like I said, I probably never ever going to support a politician, but this person will continue to do things that will make me more and more think he's actually caring about what he does. I, like every other time, waiting for that shoe, the Tulsi Gabbard RFK shoe to drop. It's just how my history has been. I hope not. Either way, he says, I'll soon be sponsoring a bill to withhold federal money from municipalities and police departments that deploy Flock and other style cameras to surveil law-abiding citizens. So not about Flock in particular, but that's the name people know. It's about any of them. I guarantee it won't pass, but at least he's doing it. But then right there, you should ask yourself whether he's doing it knowing it won't pass, because it'll make him look like the one resisting. I don't believe that. In fact, I think what he's been doing is showing you clearly that he has these principles. The question is whether he will ignore them for his own benefit when time comes. That's politics for you. But you can decide for yourself. Glenn Jacobs shares this, and this is another positive note, guys. Now, who knows if he means it? And again, this is my point about politicians in general, that at the end of the day, politicians will lean into whatever benefits them. That's what their job is. Sad, but the truth. So I'd like to change that. I like there would be no government. But since so many people want it for whatever reason, the point would be that we see an opportunity. Basically, what we see is a situation where if we know what they are, well, then what drives them is their own interests, opportunity, right? They're profiteers, they're opportunists. So if we show them, like is so clear right now, which clearly, well, on a different topic, on like Israel and other things, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and others clearly caught onto that and have leaned into it and have incredible amounts of support despite the system attacking them, right? In this case, he's supporting the removal of flock cameras. And so does he mean it? Or is he just recognizing that he's going to gain so much support that it's worth that, even if he gets attacked by things that he otherwise leaned into? You know, his lobbying turns on him or whatever. Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I think people are realizing that if you get massive support, you end up like a Massey, like a and that is hugely beneficial as we see things changing. So question his intentions and always hold his feet to the fire, because I expect people like this down the line will quietly fall back into line. I hope I'm wrong. Here's what he says. And all this shows you is either he means this, and that's a great thing because he hears us and he cares, or because he knows that we all don't want this, that he's leaning into it for his benefit. Either way, it shows you that we're having an effect.
County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. Today, I am urging our commission to prohibit the use of flock cameras and similar devices in our county. For those of you who don't know, these cameras, technically called automated license plate readers, are motion activated and take a picture of every vehicle which passes by. While license plate readers have been around for a while, because of AI and vastly increased networking and data retention capacities, these flock cameras have capabilities not even imagined in the past. Older cameras only took a photo of your license plate, which was then retained for a short time. Flock cameras take a photo of your plate, but also use AI to catalog distinguishing features of your vehicle. Make, color, model, even bumper stickers. That data is stored in a searchable database for sometimes up to a month or more, depending on the policies of that particular agency. When these cameras are deployed in large numbers, they create a network that can be used to track your movements. Currently, there is no federal regulatory framework governing these devices in place, and the Tennessee laws regulating them were written over a decade ago. My fear is that we may be inadvertently creating a warrantless mass surveillance system and undermining the privacy and liberty of our people. So I urge the Tennessee General Assembly and the United States Congress to look at this issue and take necessary action to safeguard our privacy and civil liberties as these new technologies continue to emerge. Thank you.
No, of course it's Tennessee. It's one of the places that really does, at least the people, the politicians understand that people truly want their freedom and their privacy. So you see that, right? But I get the sense in there that there's, the way almost that one point that I made that I heard where it's the idea that this is inadvertent. I mean, how in the world could you even say that? I mean, how is it even inadvertent? Like, that doesn't even seem like an honest thing to say. It's obviously advertent. It's not even the right word. I'm just kind of joking. Inadvertent, but deliberate is my point. It's obviously something they designed to do that. That's the point. So it's a weird thing to say. But continuing, I think it's good that he's saying it, is my point, because he sees the opportunity. Jason Bassler says, let's set the record straight. We do not want Flock. We don't want Axon. We don't want Motorola. We don't want anyone building a database of our daily lives. We just want to live without being tracked, monitored, logged, profiled, or monetized. Just leave us alone. But they won't do that. Where they go with this is specifically Flock, but Axon has similar versions. They're all going in the same direction. It's like the rush for the vaccine point, guys. You pick your poison, right? That's what the COVID-19 timeframe or anything else. Josh says, remember when everyone told you Flock was just reading license plates? Well, here's Flock Alpha. Now realize that already they're lying about that, or with the earliest versions of these things. But on top of that, we have the additional things they could add to them, which make this invasive to your cell phone, absorbing your data. This one specifically talks about, it's called Flock Alpha, as he highlights, the autonomous drone dynamic. And this is surveillance, this is deployable, and this overlaps with Axon, right? Or any of them is the point. But this is where it's going. So realize this is not inadvertent. It's always been the plan, at least in my opinion. So I don't think this one's playing. Is that not playing? God, it's so frustrating. Yeah, made in the U.S. Asterisk at the bottom with the U.S. with Israeli help, made by Israeli spies. So that's where this goes. I don't think that's a secret to people paying attention. I mean, the drone enforcement has been around. I mean, I'm going to end with a clip today that's going to show you what's like in China, but it's just not a secret. All of them are leaning in that direction. It's a matter of when. ICE has already been using these to some degree. They've already been leaning in that direction, but it's not something that's been mass adopted or at least mass like revealed. But I mean, as somebody puts in the comment, you know, there's contracts going out about drone docks and deployments for the police. I mean, guys, how do we not see where this goes? It's obvious this is the direction, and it's about keeping us, the population, in control. Now, Orwell Day says this is what we're up against. And I showed you this in the last show yesterday, but just to really quickly highlight this, and he's right. This is a map of all the counties in the United States. He said there are about 3,000 of them. According to deflock.org, there are about 90 cities that have stopped using flock cameras, the license plate readers, or just in general the cameras, right? Many of which have quietly switched to Axon, but it says that's cities, not counties. To show us the approximate guess as to how much progress we've made, and he just bunches them together to show you they're scattered, right? But just taking the look, this is where we are. The gray is where they are, largely, not ubiquitously, right? But the red are where they're actually somewhat being stopped. Like, we have a long way to go. And so let's we're barely getting into it. And we have people already head faking about why we're falling for the flock thing. You know, it's like, well, even if that's the case, guys, why would the argument be not to call this out? That feels like the Psyop itself, does it not? Now, he also points out he got his account momentarily blocked, suspended for uploading a video of how to cut down a flock camera. Now, he says they claimed it was a video that was directly encouraging people to participate in illegal activity. By the way, before I even read the rest of it, despite the fact that there's tons of content just like that on this platform about things they're okay with, you know, about murdering Palestinian children, for example, or any number of horrifying things that they'll absolutely be okay with. Or even things that, for example, like, okay, arguably, you could find clips on here about how to 3D print things that would be illegal, but that's okay because we all agree with those things, right? But except this one, they don't. It's a selective application. The idea being that they will censor people they don't agree with and allow those they do, because this is not a free speech platform. But nonetheless, he continues to say, I can understand their position, and a 12-hour suspension is not the worst they could have done. The part that concerns me most is that they also said if it happens again, they may suspend and may not. Could be permanent. You know, they threatened that opaquely and says, I don't want to lose touch with you. In my opinion, we're building a movement here, not just a place to share content. If you would like to make sure we don't lose ability to communicate, he gives you his website. But what it was about the taking down a flock camera, a cool how-to video. Well, right now, I can find videos like that on this platform. Right now. Now, I'm sure if you push, they'd probably censor those too. My point is this person is getting a lot of momentum and attention around this topic. So they threw him some shade. That's what this comes down to me, because it's selectively applied as anybody can see. Now, this is a good clip I want to play with you or share with you. Troy flock cameras destroyed at 3 locations. Mayor responds. Mayor Carmela called it a violent act by an unhinged individual. As we know, they're trying to create the idea that we're all terrorists for caring about our rights. Nothing new, but now it's about the anti-tech extremism. It's the new term, right? Right-wing terrorism, left-wing communist monster, whatever the new thing they can use to go after any American that doesn't agree with what they're doing. That's amazing we haven't woken up to this by now. But and again, this is why this is happening, because they're trying to coordinate the illusion. They don't want people to see what's happening. And I don't think it's even about the video. I think it's about stopping that person's ability to continue to get viral posts about what people are actually doing. But here's a clip about them calling you an unhinged, crazy person for actually caring about this.
An act of violence that was done by an unhinged individual. The vandals struck at 3 separate locations in the Collar City. Automated license plate reading cameras, ALPRs, also referred to as flock cameras, were destroyed sometime overnight at a time when these cameras have stirred up a great deal of controversy in the city.
There's been a nationwide concern about flock cameras. Some people feel like they need to take matters into their own hands when their government is not. It's unfortunate.
Deirdre Shea is with the organization Deflock Troy, a group that has been involved in a concerted effort for there to be reasonable guidelines and oversight for the data collected by the cameras. If these cameras help police solve crimes, if they help them take bad people off the streets, you could argue that that's a good thing.
Absolutely, but there has to be balance, right? And right now that this technology is totally unrestricted and can be used without a warrant, right? Do you want somebody to be following you around town without a warrant? You want there to be probable cause, you want there to be a due process, right? And there aren't any rules around that right now.
In a joint statement from Mayor Carmela Mantello and Police Chief Dan DeWolf, they point out these acts do nothing to improve our community. Enough is enough. And Troy deserves better than this, and together we will continue working to preserve and protect the community we all love. Deirdre Shea stresses she condemns the vandalism. It is not our organization's method of activism. Also from the mayor's office, we refuse to allow the acts of a few individuals define our community. This act, they say, will be thoroughly investigated.
All right. I missed the last part there. But so the point I want to get into, obviously this is happening. People aren't happy with this. And then whatever action they decide to take, which I'll bring up the article right now of Jason Basser's article for TLAV, 8 ways to take down a flock camera without a sawzall, meaning simply, going through, protesting, petitioning your government, like any number of things, right? And the point, there we go. That, as you said in the video, right? I mean, it's unconstitutional, right? There shouldn't be any conversation about whether or not it benefits police if what they're doing is illegal, guys. That's wrong. But then, the idea is, shouldn't that be a good thing? But the point is that people are taking this action. They're called unhinged lunatics. You can decide to go, as somebody wrote in the chat, actually, is it violence against an inanimate object? An inanimate object? Yes. Or rather, no. I mean, the point would be, how can you argue that it's violence if it's not against another person? It's an interesting point. But either way, the idea that they're pushing it regardless just shows you everything. They really don't care about adhering to what the founding documentation of this country. What they want to do is surveil you unjustifiably. And this is a great article to understand the many different ways that you can go after this and in a legal way. But on top of that, realizing that one of the points he makes is demand evidence, guys, because what they'll keep claiming, like they did there, if it helps the cops, well, that's a good question, bud. Does it? Have you only listened to what Flock says or Axon, or have you actually looked at the stats from places where they've been put in? Because you guess what? They're not there. Because the data, guess what, doesn't back up what they're saying, as Jason's been screaming about. You can look for yourself. Oh, it stops this and it does that and reduces crime by 30%. Well, it turns out those numbers are in a vacuum somewhere and don't exist in the real world. Surprise, surprise. Check out this article. It's well done. Anti-tech extremists. As AI hatred grows. I mean, they know we don't want this, guys, and they just don't care. Now, here's a clip, by the way, exactly like they censored that Orwell Day count for. A long 5-minute clip about a person who used to work at Flock walking through this. Now, literally, here's a video, guys, of a guy telling you exactly what you shouldn't do, right? Exactly what the bad guys do. Here's a video walking through in intricate detail exactly what, if you see someone doing in intricate detail, you should go and say, that's wrong, buddy, because that's a crime. How dare you illegally take down an unconstitutional surveillance tool, right? So what this guy's doing is highlighting what people do that is wrong. So make sure you take detailed notes about how the wrong things he's doing should be called out. My point, obviously, being facetious, is the guy's making a clip about how to take down Flock cameras, which still exists on Twitter, has 100,000 views. Interesting, selective application. I hope it doesn't get censored. Hope nobody does on the supposed free speech platform. But here he is, walking through in intricate detail from working with Flock himself.
And freedom units. You want to get that camera taken down. You want to cut the cable as fast as possible. The solar panel itself is held on by 8 set screws. Okay, to remove the solar panel, you have to loosen 4 of those set screws. Now that's 13 millimeter. When you cut the cable, they're going to get a notification that you've been tampering with the camera. What you want to do is get this camera off the pole as soon as possible and start making your way back to your vehicle. You want to get back to your car, and as you're walking towards the car, take that Torx bit on that same impactor drill, whatever you were using, put that T25 or T30 Torx bit on, and as you're leaving the scene, start unscrewing the camera housing. So by the time you get to your car, you can pull the battery backup out and it can no longer track your location. The moment you cut that cable, they're going to dispatch police to your location. So you want to flee the scene quickly, and as you're fleeing the scene, start taking that camera apart so you can get that battery backup out. Don't throw the battery backup out because they could be used for tons of things. I've heard of people using them for remote-controlled cars, remote-controlled planes, and different hobbies, even using them as a makeshift, power source for lights in their work vans. The solar panels you can get creative with. You can put them on your RV, you can put them on your work van, you can put them on your trailers, anything. You can use them to generate power to, charge your Milwaukee tools. You can get creative with the solar panels. A couple things to clarify about the pole. This one is not mounted legally. Garrett Langley, the CEO of the company, said it himself. They're kind of going based on brute force. They're just trying to install as many of these as possible, as fast as possible. And this is a good example. This is not safe. Not only is it not safe, it's not stable. I barely touched it, and look how much the thing is swaying. Okay, if a car hits this, it can decapitate a driver. The pole can be inserted through the vehicle. It's completely unsafe. What should be here should be a concrete slab, and this should be mounted to the slab using a breakaway plate so that if a car does hit it, the camera will just fall over and break away. It won't provide any resistance. Nothing can penetrate the vehicle and decapitate drivers and make a bloody scene. Now, why are they trying to brute force everything? They're brute forcing as many of these cameras, installing as many of these cameras as they humanly possibly can, because they're trying to IPO. What does that mean? They're trying to sell the company or become public. They want shareholders. Right now, if they get sued, Garrett Langley could be held responsible, but through the use of, LLCs and the way the business is structured, the business itself would have to pay for the lawsuit, and it would be detrimental to the company. They would probably foreclose or bankrupt. I mean, they would be done as a company if they were sued now. But if they get sued once they have shareholders after they IPO, any lawsuits, any big payments are paid out through shareholder, through shareholder profits. The company wouldn't necessarily be damaged by themselves. It would be detrimental if they were sued now. But the more cameras they have on paper, the more money they could sue for. So what they're doing is, like I said, they have private customers. There's a mosque, and the mosque is leasing this camera. Okay, the way it works is they pay for a year lease, and Flock maintains the camera. Anything that goes wrong with it, whatever, they maintain it. But you never own it. You just have a login. You have access. You can view what the camera records. Any plates that it picks up, anything that passes by and is recorded by the camera, you have access to. You have your own login. Now, this login, this access between private institutions can be shared. For instance, police departments lease a lot of flock cameras, but between municipalities, they don't technically have a login. They only can log into the cameras that they lease, right? So let's say Skokie Police Department wants to access cameras in Morton Grove, they'd have to make a phone call and get, those videos sent over. But what they do is they share access. So Skokie can share access with Morton Grove, and they could just log into each other's cameras. And this is done on a worldwide, throughout the whole United States, every municipality. It's not just governments that are local to each other or police departments that are local to each other. And a lot of these private clients, like this mosque, for instance, they'll lease this camera and get it pulled up, but they have no idea that they are sharing accessibility to this camera with their local police department. So they purchased this as a lease, as a private business, as a mosque, so they could have their own login information, so they could protect their parking lot, see who's coming in and out, and if anything happens, they can obviously track the perpetrator, at least in this direction, because there's not one pointing in that direction. So they could log in to the camera, see who passed by, and pull up that information. But the local police department can also do the same thing through confusing language. When these private customers lease these cameras, they have no idea that it automatically opts into sharing accessibility with police departments. So anyone that has a private business or public business can get one of these cameras installed. All you need, let's say you own a mechanic shop, you have a physical location in a parking lot, you can get one of these pulled up. If you work at a police department, you guys have a budget for security, for surveillance, whatever the hell you want to call it, you can get these, put up in your city, do a lease for the police department. Any private or public business can get a flock camera through a lease.
Now, think about what that shows you. First of all, the point, obviously, is what we were already highlighting in one of our earliest deep dives on this, which is that they say, no, it's just it's only shared with this one group. Well, that's the police or authority just gave access to each other. And that's already been verified. That's already been stated well before this guy saying this. So yes, they technically have that control, but then they give that access to anybody in the authority, or they ultimately probably have a larger database they just tap it into and they all have access to everything, however you want to look at it. But then you have an individual who chooses to get this, and then all of a sudden that random person can just view everybody's personal data as they're driving. I mean, it's insane. These things should not, guys, we're at a point where this is being forced in, as he's highlighting, massively just jamming these in. And he made a good point, though, about the idea of what they're trying to accomplish. It is a company. Right. So maybe they are in some kind of bid war about who gets the real contract, and it's at the end of the day, all of them need to stop. Now, for the point of the actual, idea of what he's telling you, guys, there's two reasons to point this out. One is that he's saying something. This is a point I've been making a lot lately, which is that whether or not he's telling you how to do something that's illegal, there's no law that says he can't say how to do something illegal. You see what I'm saying? Like, they just make that, argue that you're, or posting online and therefore promoting violence. Now, that's from a Twitter perspective, that's wildly not free speech, but they're doing that to justify, it's a violent thing and we have to just violent speech. Well, it's the same point. You're not free speech. Everybody should know that by now. From platform, they can bastardize their own things. But in the sense of I think that's the larger point. But at the end of the day, we're talking about something that is, what was the point? It was about anyway, I think I lost my train of thought. It was about the Twitter connection. Anyway, the guy posting this should not be charged with a crime for stating something. But that's what we're seeing, right? And so it shows you that very clear jump into your free speech on top of your other rights. And on top of that, I can agree with whatever I want. You know what I mean? Like, people can justify this. And again, it's a secondary point of the same argument. I can say, I agree with them out there cutting those flock cameras down. Realize that doing so, which I'm not even advocating for, only because I don't want people to rush out and do things that will get them in trouble, potentially go to jail, maybe shot, only because they think that I'm promoting it. You know my opinions. I've made it clear on the show more than once. And I know lots of you out there support this, because what they're doing is fighting something, even if it's in a way you think is illegal, that is unconstitutional. Isn't that the foundation of this country? But I argue that we're at a different place in the world. Violence begets violence, and I think that's what they want from us. But people disagree. So that's why it's your decision to decide. But I and everyone else has every right to highlight these things for what they are, has every right to say whatever they want, because that's what we all are told are unalienable rights, even though we know that's not what they believe. Jason Bassler, as plenty of others have highlighted as well, and Jason's been ahead of this for a long time now. They're putting cameras, license plate readers, whether flock or not, on all sorts of things where they're hiding them. This is a construction, that says, with an arrow and says, take this exit kind of a thing, or, turn around, whatever. It's a construction trailer, right? With one of those flashing signs, and they put a camera on the back of it. So you drive by and don't realize as you drive by, they're getting your license plate and all your information. And if you look at the image I used today, which I'll let me just pull up real quick. In fact, I argue that this is probably what they're doing right now. Like, not even trying to be hyperbolic. So one is just obviously identifying camera and cars, right? And we know it goes well beyond license plates. But the idea that it will obviously, it already is becoming, with ICE and everything else, they are using them, right? Not just your plate number, your car, but, white male, blue eyes, Republican, owns 3 handguns, married, 2 kids, said this about Palestine, right? That's what this will become. Brown eyes, female, Democrat, no guns, progressive activist, vegan, right? That's what is already happening. This has been proven, by the way, in specific focused contexts like ICE. So why wouldn't it be everywhere else? DFLOC, basically putting out contracts that are under a certain amount so they don't have to vote for them. And these are the small examples that show you they know what they're doing is wrong. At the very least, they know that we think it's wrong. It's funny how they don't care about that. Doesn't that matter?
Because DFLOC Cobb has mapped out exactly how this infrastructure was spread and what we can do to stop it. We have a deadline, August 12th, to stop a portion of Flock safety from expanding right here in Marietta. Flock offers a variety of products like ALPRs, drones, mobile security trailers, gunshot detection systems, and AI-enhanced video cameras called Condor. Condor cameras are a pan-tilt zoom camera designed to lock onto and track moving objects like people and feed that data directly into a national database. And the city of Marietta has a hidden contract for one. Because this specific camera only costs $3,000 a year, it was signed administratively and does not need approval from a council vote. Under the contract's fine print, if the city does nothing, it automatically renews for 2 more years. The city thinks it can roll over in total silence, but we are not going to let this sneak through. Here's what we need you to do right now. Email the Marietta City Council members and city manager and demand that they cancel this contract. You can find their information at the city's website or at the DFLOC Cobb website to email them directly. Let them know that the Marietta residents do not want to invest in any surveillance technology. A city that relies on constant, automated surveillance of its own citizens is a broken one. Mass surveillance is not the answer to public safety. True safety comes from investing directly in our communities to prevent crime before it even happens.
Did you hear that? Now, just so it's clear, the point was obviously about the contract. But what you're getting is sort of like this weird mainstreamy coverage, like, well, bad thing, and we called it out, but guess what? Now we're talking about pre-crime? There's a whole mix of psyops going on right now, guys, and people who are just trying to gaslight you. And that's what I think this whole thing kind of is, right? Is problem, reaction, solution in the purest sense. Shoving this thing in front of you so we go, the thing! And they already have something planned. We just need to be aware of that and be on guard for whatever the next shift is, because it always happens. Acting like we need to stop it before crime happens. What are you talking about? That's not even legally justified. So what's the crime then if it hasn't happened? It's like, no, we're not talking about somebody who's like in the midst of about to be stabbing somebody. That would be called attempted murder, right? The idea is that because you could argue the bottom line is we're talking about the idea that you're about to commit this robbery, whatever. And if you haven't done it yet, you can't charge them with a crime of thinking about committing a crime. That's where you get into this thought crime, pre-crime dynamic. And even if you argue that there's some level of justifiable play, like I'm willing to bet you we could find a framing that absolutely makes us all go, well, that's where your principle comes in. They did it during COVID. They do it in a number of situations where some people who, even though they disagree, go, well, but that just makes sense right now. We are in a lot of danger. There is a big bad virus out there, whatever they're saying. If you actually stood by your principles, it wouldn't have mattered what the fear-mongering tactic was. Same thing. Happens every time. Next one, say another clip, similar. Orwell does share this. And this is Costa Mesa admitting that they basically didn't even know the contract, or at the very least covering for themselves and acting like they didn't know, but saying that it was basically a quiet, secret contract. They made sure was under a certain amount so it wouldn't had to be voted on. Like, and now you have people within their own local government going, well, we're going to cancel that because, like, what's going on, guys? You need to be able to see a very surreptitious, sinister agenda. And I just mean just by the way they're conducting themselves, not even getting into the obviously sinister surveillance. The way they're conducting this shows you that they are trying to keep this quiet. And I mean, long before we were up in arms about it. That says something.
That's a substitute motion she wishes to make. Yeah, I don't know what she still does, but she has.
Yeah, I still do. Move that we eliminate the flock contract effective immediately.
I've been scratching my head a little bit trying to figure out why this wasn't an issue when we adopted the original contract. I'm usually pretty diligent in looking at what we're approving, and I couldn't remember looking into these details, and I realized tonight that our original flock contract actually wasn't made in public. We signed a $98,000 contract without transparency, without public disclosure. $98,000 is $2,000 short of what the city is allowed to do without public transparency. So that concerns me too. The 46 locations, this is why I want to ask about locations. 46, I'm sorry, is it 31? The 31 cameras is exactly the number of cameras that can be included in a contract to stay below that $100,000 threshold. So it strikes me that the locations chosen or the number of cameras chosen was not based on analysis of crime data or need, but a budgetary opportunity to sign a contract with without public information. I think if we had more transparency and public discussion when signing the original contract as a city, I think we would have had a similar outpouring, and I think we wouldn't have moved forward. I don't think the city will fall apart with crime. I think you guys have done a great job prior to having these flock cameras. So I just think it's a huge risk and vulnerability and breach of trust and privacy for a little bit of gain, maybe a little bit of efficiency. So I wanted to share those comments. Yeah, that's it.
Please, stop, please. Okay. Nobody's seconding that motion. It dies for lack of a second.
Back to the point. Taking a while. There we go. So, this is happening all over the country. So the question is, how many of these aren't we seeing? Right? And how many are quietly falling back in line? How many are being stopped? How many are being switched to something else? That's the real point here. So I think we all kind of know this is happening. It's not even secret because, I mean, if we have local governments openly going, yeah, that's wild. Or that one we played last time where they said they signed the contract and it clearly said they would not use or sell your data. And then they looked and they removed the line after they signed the contract. That was a local government. I mean, you just don't miss stuff like that. Here's a clip about, I briefly mentioned this at the end, Tucker Carlson, same kind of point about the car, just kind of showing you at that level, regardless, people are talking about this. Question is intentions? I do. The point is about the fact that it is there, and now it's so obvious to everybody, it's coming out at the highest levels of the mainstream alternative media. They're building a surveillance network and forcing you to be a part of it, and then pretending like they care about your constitutional rights. Just long enough to get us into the cage is what it feels like to me.
Congress mandates cameras in all new passenger vehicles that assess the face of the driver, whether he's eating or yawning or who knows what he's doing, having a private conversation. Well, there are no more private conversations, even within the confines of your own vehicle. Why? Because safety.
This is real, and it was passed under the Biden administration by Congress. It was part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It directs the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to issue a federal motor vehicle safety standard requiring drunk and impaired driving prevention technology in all new passenger vehicles, and this includes specifically those cameras that are going to be pointed at you. The technology must passively detect whether a driver is impaired, primarily focused on alcohol, but also broader impairment. If impairment is detected, the system must be able to prevent or limit the vehicle's operation. It is technology neutral. Congress did not specify cameras, sensors, or any particular method, but they kind of did, because if you look at the exact verbiage in there, let's take a look at that down here. I put it in there. Here it is. It must passively monitor the performance of a driver or motor vehicle to accurately identify whether that driver may be impaired. So really, what other technology could do this other than a camera? None that I know of. It has to be a camera. So the next question would be, obviously, is it still passed? Has it been repealed? And no, the law is still passed. It remains in effect. It looks like they have to issue a guidance. They missed the deadline, but there is an extension. So November 5th, 2027 is when we can logically expect some kind of implementation of this.
And just so you know, and that's directly from the information, but it's already happening. As I personally can attest to from when I went to see my father. As I briefly told you, if you haven't heard that, the point is I had to get a rental car, which I'm never going to do again. And it was exactly like that lady was telling you if that video came through, right? I mean, stopping you in the middle of the highway because you're speeding up too fast or because you're sitting down too low. I mean, guys, and not only are they doing it, they're stealing your biometrics, which is not their right to do without asking. I didn't check any box. Her thing asked her. I didn't get that. And it's clearly looking at my information. It's clearly got, the bottom line is that this is dangerous, but beyond that, it's unconstitutional. But nobody seems to care. And they are reaping the whirlwind, guys. They're making so much money off selling this back to the very people who are building your control grid using that information. Catherine Austin Fitz rightly points this out, and she says, critical intelligence for every American. This is a direct result of allowing the $20 trillion disappearing from the Pentagon to go unaddressed. This is Dennis Kucinich talking about the Section 219 that we've talked about, the idea of the merging of the U.S. military with the Israeli military, rather just the Israeli military sort of taking over the U.S. military. Catherine says, those Flock and Axon cameras in your town, right? How do you feel about the Israeli military having access to them and training your local police and sheriff how to do to you and your family and property what they've done to Gaza? Now, her point is that if you merge the militaries, that would happen. But guess what? And she would agree with this too, as we've talked about. That's already happening, especially since I've showed you millions of times, and this is just the AI part of it, but that is central to all of this. They already have a joint partnership for artificial intelligence, strategic partnership. They're using all the same data, which is your data, which they removed the unsiloed information. They moved it together, as Trump told you, so they could do this and train their large language models and their AI. Israel has access. I went over this in depth. No one's even denying that, guys. They literally know everything about, and on top of that, that means through all of this, as we just played you before, the training of ICE and everything else, or using Paragon Solutions, which is their Israeli intelligence tech, they already have access. I don't think that's going to matter as much to some more than others, but to me, that matters in a whole other way. But we're just talking today about the idea of your government illegally violating your rights in every possible way. Now, this is just an interesting overlapping point. Truth Seeker shares this, saying this is no coincidence. Their opinion anyway. These are deliberately started fires to push the climate agenda to make room for data centers and 50-minute cities. Vacation? No, you'll stay right there in your 15-minute city. Now, this is a topic that has been coming up a lot since COVID-19, the Great Reset, right? Now, the reason I even share this, because I didn't even look into this. My point is not even about whether that's accurate, because it could be. It wouldn't surprise me, because I would not in any way dismiss that kind of exact sentiment. We should sure as hell prove that, though, right? And then whether it's coincidence or deliberate. But the point for me is, isn't it interesting what they're talking about? Who, more than anybody right now, even more than Biden, is pushing the AI direction, data centers, all of it? Donald Trump. It's not unique to Trump. Our U.S. government is doing it. He's just the current person in that seat. The point for me is that before him, what was the focal point of the 15-minute city? The idea of the fires to create these news, that was about the woke Great Reset, right? Well, okay. Well, then I think it's very easy to make the next logical step and go, oh, well, that means that Trump supports the 15-minute city and the Great Reset. Well, yes, guys, that is the network state agenda. That is all these different parts and different language, different people guiding it for their interests. It's the same general idea. That's what this is. That's the Gaza smart city. That's what all all of these things are. Trump is still leading that charge. It is the Great Reset. It just never stopped. It got a facelift. We all see it if we're paying attention. And so I just find that fascinating, right? So if you're right now going, oh, clearly all those fires are about removing it for the data centers. Oh, whoops, that means that Trump supports the data centers. Well, there you go. Well, you could argue that's happening independently of him, but it's the same agenda, guys. Now, even if this is not accurate, the point is to think about that and what that means about recognizing the partisan lies that keep you lost. I'll include the show we just did about data centers and how they choose to use fresh water, specifically fresh, when potable even would work. We're not even talking about like, you know, the point is you could have like treated fresh water in your sink, then you could have water that's technically potable that wouldn't be necessarily acceptable in some places through your sink. Then you've got non-potable water. Then you've just got, you know, varying degrees of just terrible, disgusting sewage. And the point would be that non-potable water absolutely could work. The only reason they don't is because it would be more expensive for them. Look it up for yourself. Watch this show. It's undeniable because the non-potable water will cause scaling and then they got to spend money to clean the thing. Oh, no. Instead, they're using a very clearly scarce resource and they're massively destroying forests and taking your resources and poisoning your environment. But, you know, it's all for the good because China, you know, oh, that's actually a lie, though. Didn't we realize that they paid us to do that? The dark money campaign. When they were going in that direction, but last I checked, the U.S. has 45% of the world's data centers, 12 times more than China. So yeah, they're playing you all, or trying to play all of us. That's where we are. So to finish in general, as Jason Bassler points out, 2026, well, it's for stolen cars, right? We just want to keep you safe. Jump forward to 2028, failure to comply with lockdowns. Suddenly, those flock cameras are catching you if you're out. A child could see where this goes, whether that's a Republican or a Democrat, or whether that's because of a virus or because of some kind of hate speech or a foreign Iran sleeper cell or whatever it is. That's what that can be used for. And frankly, guys, that's exactly what it is for. He's just trying to make you see that. We also have this point, which I'll probably just play. Yeah, I'll just play that. Just flipping the script, right? Talking about how, well, you know what? We want to keep you safe as our government. We want to make sure that you guys are safe. So what we're going to do is start a program where we're going to surveil you all 24 hours a day. We're going to follow you in and out of your cars. We're going to make sure that we see where your children go. And we're just going to make sure that you're safe because we care about you. Oh, you don't like that? Well, we feel the same way, right? It's well done. We'll finish with that on the way out. And I'll try not to forget. I did forget Tim Dillon yesterday, but I included on the Odyssey post. Now, this is just another post about OpenAI building a $20 billion data center. We didn't go into data centers today, but it's one arm of this larger agenda. They need these for what they're building. These are all different parts of what this is, guys. I mean, is anybody even questioning that it's a security grid, a safety grid? It's the same thing. And they're not even trying to hide it at this point. And I'll play that one and then we'll finish up.
$52 billion. That's what OpenAI is worth right now, making it one of the most valuable private companies on Earth. And this week, we learned it's getting a 50% property tax break for 15 years to build a $20 billion data center outside of Savannah, Georgia. And all of this unfolded without a single vote from the public about whether or not they wanted this to happen. Here's what's going on. OpenAI just announced Project Camellia, a $20 billion data center campus in Effingham County, about 30 minutes from downtown Savannah. At full scale, the total cost of the project could exceed $30 billion. That would make it one of the most expensive development projects in Georgia's history. On top of that, like every company building a data center in Georgia, OpenAI won't pay a dime in sales tax on the materials and equipment used to build it, thanks to a state exemption that's already cost Georgia billions this year alone. The scale of this thing is hard to picture. Georgia Power has agreed to deliver OpenAI 3.2 gigawatts of electricity between 2028 and 2032, enough to power more than 2 million homes. Yes, enough electricity to power almost half of all homes in Georgia. Plus, environmental groups warn the data center will use massive amounts of water in a region already facing a looming shortage. During an event last night, residents expressed their fury at the lack of public discussion and the fact that the entire project has thus far only been discussed in closed-door meetings between OpenAI and county officials. Effingham County Commissioner Phil Kiefer said the property was already zoned for industrial use, including a data center, and therefore the commission did not have to vote on it yet. And amid all of these local concerns, OpenAI is facing a broader backlash, too, about the role of AI in society. That includes lawsuits from parents whose child committed suicide after the company's chatbot, ChatGPT, told him how to do so. Protests surrounding its contract with the Pentagon for the use of AI in military settings, and authors who allege OpenAI trained ChatGPT by ingesting copyrighted books without their permission or receiving compensation. In the meantime, residents are working to determine if there are any steps they can take to stop the project, since it must still go through local review before construction can begin.
So I only just noticed that somebody's saying there was no video. I hope. so nobody tells me there's no video the entire time that was playing? How is that possible? Somebody tell me you guys were seeing that and some people weren't able to see it, which I'm guessing was the case. Man. That's just taking forever to come back up for me. Man, that's taking forever. Somebody in the chat, let me know. One of the mods, let me know if you guys were able to see that. Not that it's necessarily, we heard it audio only. Man, what a crazy thing this is. Oh, that's just crazy. But bottom line was, as you heard, it's just her standing there anyway. So it doesn't really, you heard the point then if you heard that. A drone that wouldn't let a man enter the sea after dark. Now, this is not new in China, guys. But realize that this is not even some dystopian future. This is literally what's in the world already. And I, to be even on a separate point, to be clear about this as well, realize there's things happening in the United States that are far worse than China. When it comes to specific, technological things, that they're clearly leading the charge when it comes to facial scans and biometrics. But there's other comparisons that people don't get into. And the reality is that our country is sprinting, in my opinion, in the worst direction out of anybody, or rather our government, to make that accurate. I hate that when people do that myself. And so in this case, just, you don't really need to even play it, but just to show you, you can't go on the beach tonight. This is where the world goes. Maybe we'll be able to see this. Just wild, it's right. It's like out of every movie we've been told, it's where this goes, guys. And also, and with this, as I briefly pointed out before, Axon's ethic board resigns over taser armed drones, which they claim they didn't do, but then they went on to buy a military drone maker. The CEO's vision for taser-equipped drones includes a fictitious scenario in which the technology averts a shooting at a daycare center. Right, for your safety. Well, it's not that hard to recognize. ICE is pushing for it, where you're going to, if they do event, which is literally happening around us, if you're not paying attention. Oh, is that on the screen? Hold on. I pressed it, but it didn't look like it went up. There we go. To finish, Axon's ethics board resigns over taser-armed drones, right? Then goes on to buy the military drone maker. And the point, again, is that they claim the fictitious scenario about stopping a shooting, they're already going in this direction. If we can already see that there's contracts for these drone docks and where they're going, it's easy to look up. It's a foregone conclusion that they're going to need some that, in fact, enforce. They already have this stuff being built. They've got contracts. They've got patents and designs. It's really just a matter of when that shoe drops. And if we don't want this, then let's not wait until the mainstream alternative media is breaking news that it's in your face, but stop it now when we can. when it's possible, and don't wait for the fake media to tell you when they want you to freak out about it so they'll benefit the next agenda. But when we can actually do something. And if you go back through TLAV's track record, that's been our job the entire time. Waving and jumping and saying, look at this thing, we need to do something about it. And you know, many of us try. All of you here. But ultimately ends up in a place where you're getting the fake media screaming about how breaking story about the thing that you guys have known about for 2 months, and now it's too late to stop. And that's over and over and over. But taking COVID, for example, I still get letters to this day that say that because of what you did on this topic, you saved my mother, you saved my family. Every time we do something like this, I believe that's happening. And not to say it about me, I mean anybody in this field that's doing honest work about things in the breaking moments of situations, whether it's East Palestine or anything else. Maybe our coverage is the difference between whether they decide to stay in that dangerous location or get the hell out of there as they're being told it's safe, even though it turns out to have gone 6 states across. That's the reality of what happened if you don't remember. They caused that thing on purpose, and they said, no worries, 2 miles, you're good, just stay in the town. Yeah, no, looking back, 6 states across was the zone. So when we do our work like this, it's about trying to be ahead of it for you. That's always the point, guys. So remember that, right? As we finish here, see if this can come back on, see if it works. Yeah. It's not working for me. Maybe you can see me. I don't know. But to finish, this is so important to be ahead of for a lot of different reasons. I'm just going to add this back so at least I can see something. I don't like that it just shows the... Anyway. Frustrating. Maybe that'll work a little bit better. Well, we'll see. But, this is the kind of work that I do find so very important, guys, that, that being ahead of it is valuable, right? And there's so many other platforms out there that will just try to get your attention in ways that will distract and admire you in nonsense. You know what I'm talking about. So if you believe in this kind of platform and what we're doing and why we're doing it, make sure you keep us alive. That's what matters, is that this is only going to be here. You know what I do. I believe in all of you, and I believe in what we're all fighting for. So if you want this to continue, and I'm not, the last thing I want to do, as I always point out, is reach it, tell people that are already supporting me. If you're already out there supporting me, if you $1 a month, I'm not talking to you. I don't, if it's 1 cent a month, I'm not talking to you, right? Because you're already supporting this platform, and you're already here who watch the show, who believe in this work, who appreciate it, and in many cases don't even know that we need donations to survive, or that we need you to value our content on what you believe it's worth for the product that we put out. I'm telling you, they're going to start to attack people based on the donation model. It's already happening with Stripe. But that's the point. We put out this product that is our content that we believe in, and if you see value in it, let us know what it's worth. And if you believe it's worth 0, I'm okay with that. Just watch the content, share it, but realize that if you do find value and you do want it to continue, like Derek talked about the Substack, we'll leave you with this video on the way out. And I believe this is, one tactic that you can take, and talking about going in front of government or protesting. As much as I do think they're not as valuable as they might have once been, or how they don't believe in it, or they don't care, it does have an effect, even around the people that you're around. People inside this chamber, people that are out there protesting a lot of things, not just voting. Or not just, make sure you're doing everything you can. And so in this case, I think this guy does a good service by demonstrating, maybe even to them, I'm jaded when it comes to that, but maybe even some of the members of this local government were like, I see your point. I have seen some things like that happen. We got to have hope as well, guys. Be careful, be skeptical, but don't lose that hope, because it matters. Even if it's 0.1% possibility, it's still possible. And I do believe it's a hell of a lot more possible than that. So thank you for tuning in today. I love you all, as always. Question everything. Come to your own conclusions.
No, I have.
Stay vigilant.
I've spent the last several months talking to people all over Casa Grande, and one thing keeps coming up: safety. So today I'm excited to announce a new company called Shepherd Safety. Our mission is simple: keep government officials and their families safe. We're launching satellites to watch over Casa Grande day and night, Our AI will monitor where government officials go, where they stop, who they meet with, and when they return home. We've already started collecting and building profiles on your vehicles, spouses' vehicles, children's vehicles, and other visual characteristics. We'll combine that information with publicly available data, Bluetooth signals, advertising IDs, vehicle information, commercial data sources, so our authorized users can replay the movements of every government official and their immediate family. There's no difference than the current flock safety capture systems. Everything will be stored securely and only authorized users will have access. Local businesses will be invited to join our network so government officials can continue being protected while shopping, eating, or traveling throughout the city. Some of you might think this sounds invasive, and you may worry about abuse, you may worry about unauthorized access, tracking innocent people. We understand those concerns. After all, those are the exact same concerns of all the citizens. What, 864 now? Something like that? But we've been told not to worry because if you're doing nothing wrong, you got nothing to hide. It's okay. You have no expectation of privacy in public. So if we track all your movement and put it up online, it's okay. Only authorized users will have access. We made that clear. And we're only going to store the data for 30 days, which is the footage. So it's no different from Flock. It's no problem. Privacy doesn't stop being important because someone says the word safety, okay? We shouldn't accept this level of surveillance, our elected officials and their families, and we shouldn't accept it for ourselves. Now, this is satire. I would never do this to you. Could I? Probably. But I wouldn't. Because it's wrong. Just like what you guys are doing to us is wrong. I'm innocent. I don't do anything wrong. You're tracking and uploading my information, my movements every day without my permission. And I don't appreciate it. And I'd like you to stop. I'd like you to do something about it. I'd like you to put it behind a warrant, just like my phone records. That's what I'm asking you guys to do. Thanks. I hope you guys have been having a